with Mrs. Gnewich for our Winnipeg community. Now, you're in for a real treat. Over the next half hour or so, we're going to be able to uncover some of the jewels that Mrs. Gnewich stands for, pun intended. Mrs. Gnewich actually sits on the executive board of the International JLI. So we run the JLI chapter here in Winnipeg, and Mrs. Gnewich is part of the board of the JLI worldwide. And she has a tremendous track record of supporting her family, supporting philanthropy, supporting community initiatives in Montreal and worldwide. Bubby Gnewich, that's how I like to refer to Mrs. Gnewich. Her beauty is felt inside and out. I hope you can feel it through the Zoom. I've been in that beautiful living room in Mrs. Gnewich's home, and I really felt part of the family. Her warmth was incredible. She knows how to do the mitzvah of hachnasat orchim, inviting guests par excellence. She is truly one remarkable woman, and I must say a role model for myself. And I'm sure that thousands of men and women around the world would have to agree with that statement. Now, one thing that I know Mrs. Gnewich is very passionate about is the future of the Jewish nation. She has paved over the last few decades an incredible road for us all. And therefore, we've asked Miss Lindsay Kogan to lead us this evening in interviewing Mrs. Gnewich. Lindsay finished her first year at Carleton University. She studied public affairs and policy management. And listen to this, she was a VP graphic design for Women in International Security and an active member of Hillel. In grade 12, Lindsay was the intern for Stand With Us, so you can see a passionate love for the land of Israel. And throughout high school was an active member of the debate and public speaking team. She has a whole bunch of plans for next year. She'll be the Emerson Fellow for Stand With Us. And I would say, meeting you, Lindsay, I am inspired for the future. I'm very confident and proud watching you. I know that our nation will be handed on to wonderful leaders in the future. So I'd like to welcome you. I'd like to welcome your dear parents, Shauna, I'm trying to see if I could find them, and Alan, and your grandparents. I know that Nessie and Harvey are on here as well. We thank you for our continued friendship and support at Chabad. And I'm going to hand over the screen now to Lindsay. Lindsay will be running the interview. If anyone has any questions along the way, feel free to just type it in the chat or speak up, and Lindsay will help us get to know this wonderful woman, Julie Gnewich. I am a Jewish woman and an entrepreneur. Welcome, everybody.
Hello, I'm very excited to be here, and I'd like to again extend a thank you to Mrs. Gnewich for being here. So I would like to just start off by asking you to tell us a little bit about yourself and your family and your business.
Thank you very much, first of all, for inviting me. It's so nice to be out of Montreal for a while and being in Winnipeg. We feel a little bit claustrophobic here. We still have a curfew at 8 o'clock, so it's nice to be in Winnipeg. And thank you for inviting me. So just a little bit about myself. I am a wife, a mother. I have 6 married children. I have Kaneno Hara 45 grandchildren. Of them, 27 are married. And I have over 70 great-grandchildren. So I'm a very busy lady besides my professional work. I grew up here in Montreal. I did not come from a Chabad home, but my parents were Orthodox Holocaust survivors. They came over in 1950 from Hungary, and life was not easy, but it's very, very interesting. My first hello to Lubavitch was in Camp Amuna. And I don't know if you know, but Camp Amuna is Mrs. Altine's grandparents who ran it all these years. They still do. Bubby still runs it. And that was my first hello to Chabad. And I fell in love with them and with Chabad and with everything that the Rebbe stood for. And then, of course, I married my husband, who was also Chabad. So we started a generation of Chabad in Montreal here. That's, you want to ask me more specific?
No, that's very nice. I have to agree with you. Chabad is a great organization. We are so lucky to have the Altines here in Winnipeg. I think Chabad really makes the city feel very Jewish. They say that diamonds are a girl's best friend. What is some advice that you have been given on your journey to create such an amazing company?
Well, diamonds are a girl's best friend, so husbands, go out and buy your wife some beautiful diamonds. That's how should I say, that's what I tell everybody. Why? I don't know. They're, I guess, a natural mind mineral, and it is not so easy to get out of the ground. And it's always been, I think, for history, going back for thousands of years, diamonds were always very, very wonderful. And it became the thing for brides to get diamonds when they get married. And so it's associated with weddings, with happiness, with all kinds of good things.
Very nice. From my understanding, the diamond industry is typically a more male-dominated industry, but it's marketed towards women. Is there something that you found interesting about being a woman in an industry dominated by men, but marketed towards women?
Well, in general, not only diamonds, but the entire jewelry industry is dominated by men, and mostly women are wearing the jewelry. But that is changing a lot. America has become very open the industry has become very open to women. And there are many, many very, very interesting, very intelligent, and very good women in high positions in the jewelry industry. Of course, there are different facets of the industry, and the businesses are still owned by mainly family businesses, and those are run by families. So you have males, you have females, and but it's not like it used to be. I remember going to Japan many, many years ago. We used to buy pearls there. That's one of our staples in our business. And I used to be the only woman amongst 50, 60 buyers that used to come there. And the times that I used to come, even the Japanese, the people that used to serve us, women in Japan are not exactly a equal commodity. Women were always on a lower level. And I remember the first time walking in there, the boss came in and we followed him, and the women lined up and bowed to everybody. And to me, it was like, wow. But so when I started coming to Japan and they looked at me, and in those days, this goes back almost 40 years, such a young woman coming to Japan buying pearls, it was like kind of a toy to them. They used to treat me so differently and so nicely. So yeah, but things have changed.
Yeah, it's good to hear that things are changing. So what drew you to the industry initially? How did you get your start in the jewelry industry?
So it's a very, very interesting story. I was by training, I was a kindergarten teacher, and I taught for many years in the yeshiva in our local Jewish school. And my children were young, and there was a time my husband was in the printing and box making business. And during the summer, there was 2 weeks of vacation that the unions automatically wanted him to close the business. So we said, you know what, let's go to California. My oldest daughter was 16 years old at the time, and she was a counselor in California. And so we said, let's go visit my daughter. At that time, I had two little kids, a little boy and a little girl. They were like 6 and 7 years old. And we took them to California. We figured we'd spend a week there. And we arrived Friday morning and went into the store there to buy stuff for Shabbos. And in the kosher store, somebody taps me on my back, and I turn around. It's a friend of mine that I hadn't seen for about 20 years from Montreal. He had moved to California, and we were neighbors, and we were so happy to see each other. And he was he used to daven in the Chabad shul. And so he said to me, you must come for Shabbos to our house. And I said, well, Friday night, the kids are tired. We're going to stay at home. But he said, well, Shabbos lunch after shul, you must come to my house. So we ended up going to his house. He was married. He had a wonderful family. And after lunch, he was I asked him what he's doing, because I had remembered he was a principal in a school there, and he said that he was no longer a principal, he was in business. He had a jewelry business. He was selling cubic zirconia. I don't know if you know what it is. It's fake diamonds. It's like little, and it seems that he had gone overboard and was doing really badly. They were going to take away his house. They were going to take away his car. He didn't know what to do. My husband knew nothing about the jewelry business, but he's a very astute businessman. And he said to him, you know what, after Shabbos, let's go down to your office in downtown LA and let's see what your books, maybe I can help you, figure something out where, you won't lose everything. And that's what he did. We went downtown and he looked at his books, and unfortunately we couldn't save him. But we felt so terrible for him that we decided that we were going to open up a company under our name that he would run. He would buy the merchandise and sell the merchandise, and he would start business again because he was an excellent salesperson. I mean, he was a genius at selling. So we did that, and we had to, in those days, we were young, we didn't have money put away. We borrowed the money from the bank, and we opened up on Monday. My husband went with him. They opened up a new company, and we started business. And my husband told him, there's one thing you have to do. You have to buy, you have to sell, get paid. There's no credit. We don't have enough money to be able to buy new merchandise and keep credit at the same time. So that was the deal. So for a few months, the deal was great. He did his job, he sold, he bought, he sold, paid us. And we thought, oh my God, we helped somebody get into business. It was an amazing feeling. And then 4 or 5 months down the road, we stopped getting money from him. And every time my husband called him, he said, oh, somebody owes him. He promised him tomorrow, the next day, in a week. Anyways, we kept getting deeper and deeper into debt because he needed to buy more merchandise because he needed to, fill all the orders he got. And my husband got a little bit nervous because, again, we didn't have any extra money. It was just helping him. And he went down to California, took a trip, didn't tell him, and he was very, very disappointed. He took a bigger office. He had already 2 people working in the office. He got a bigger car. And my husband was like so disappointed. He said to him, you know what, this can't work. This is not the deal we made. And I'm really sorry. We tried to help you, but we don't really have any more money, and we think that you should go back to being a principal or whatever it is. It seems that, you know, you don't seem to be able to carry on a business and make money. So we had a lot of merchandise at the time, which we had paid for. So my husband said, send the merchandise down to Canada to us, and good luck, and, you know, whatever it is. So I was in the jewelry business by Hashgacha Pratis, by the Eibishter. Hashem took me by the hand and made us do this mitzvah so that I should get into a business that eventually my husband will sell his business and come into business with me. And all my children at one point came into our business. And now I have 20 grandchildren working in the business. So it was just out of really divine providence. It wasn't anything to do with brains or anything to do with loving jewelry, which I do anyways. I always had a flair for design, but this was just God taking me by the hand and putting me into this business.
That is that is a very interesting story, that you are kind of like an entrepreneur by fluke. You just kind of went with it. And I think that's very admirable.
And then I had to go out and use those cubics to make jewelry and to sell it. So that's exactly what I did. I designed all kinds of things with it. I made it up, and I went from store to store and from buyer to buyer and sold jewelry. And that was the beginning.
That's amazing. So you mentioned that you've had a lot of your family members be a part of the business. How do you balance family and business?
Well, it's not easy, especially my husband is now 25 years in business also with us. And, you know, there came a time where I'm really, like I said, I'm a creative person, but I'm not a very good money person. So I needed somebody that's going to run the business properly. And my husband's the kind of a guy. So I said to him, you know, I'm at a crossroads. You either sell your business or I'll have to give up my business, because it's just, you know. So he said, you know what? I'll sell my business. I'll come and help you. And that's what he did. And he's a wonderful man. I mean, I could not have done anything without him at my side, because any woman that wants to do anything in life, they need to have a partner that is 100% in conjunction with what they're doing. Otherwise, it's impossible to do anything. And he was always with me. Whatever came up, he was always there, helping, doing. And especially, he used to make a joke, you know, till now I used to support you. Now I support you and your business. But that's really how it was. So when he came into the business, it was tough because he has certain way of doing business. I'm a much easier going person. And when my kids started to come into the business, it was really tough because, you know, young kids, they're not up at 6 o'clock in the morning like my husband, and they don't have the same work ethics, but they do work really hard. And there came a time when I said to him, you know, it's not a question of how many hours they work. It's what they do in the time that they work. And you know what? He got used to it. And now we have a beautiful relationship in the business. All the children have their positions. I told my husband that I promise I will not touch the finance part of the business. And he promised me he's not going to do any designing. So we have an excellent business relationship.
That sounds great. You know, you got to do what you're good at and allocate out what you need help with. So it sounds like your family's been a very effective support system in your business. As a CEO of the Delmar company, what do you think are the most important components in building a successful business?
Well, for one thing, in the jewelry business, honesty and trust is number one. You know, there was the jewelry industry had a lot of hanky panky going on, you know, in different areas, and you need to be honest with your customers. You can't tell them any stories, you know, when you're going to make a delivery, and if they need it on Monday and you can't deliver it on Monday, you can't tell them that you're going to deliver on Monday and do it on Thursday. You have to tell them, I'm sorry, I can only deliver it on Thursday. So I think just by being honest and trustworthy and reliable, you know, knowing who your customers are, trying to figure out what is that is going to make them do well, because basically it's your end user that you have to, you know, it's them that you have to cater to, because if your customers don't sell it in the end, it's not good for you either.
Yeah, no, that absolutely makes sense. It's very important to be honest in any working relationship. Right. So shifting gears a little bit, because you are more than just a CEO, you're an amazing community member. Can you discuss some of the community productions you've been involved with, and some of your favorite community organizations that you've been involved with?
Oh, throughout the years, I was involved in many different organizations. I was involved in the Chabad, which is the women's with the Chabad Women's Organization. I was involved in Israel Bonds. I was involved in Israel Cancer Research. I help out Federation here a lot. My philanthropy is really, I don't look at labels, and I don't look at who, what, when. Everything is important. Everybody needs help. Of course, Chabad comes first. I have 3 children who have Chabad houses. I have 2 grandchildren and 1 daughter who have Chabad synagogues, and one of my granddaughters runs the Chabad at McGill University, and one of my grandsons has the Chabad of Old Montreal, and my daughter has a beautiful Chabad show right in our building. So of course they come first, but I think every Jewish organization is very meritorious, and we need to help them.
I agree. I think it's amazing that you've been a part of so many of them. Reflecting on the history of Jewish heroines, who do you feel like you are most connected to, and who do you feel like you want to emulate?
I don't really have one person. I think every Jewish matriarch that we have is important they all have different attributes and I'd like to have a little bit of each of them, because they all are different.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I agree. I'd like to say my top 2 faves are like Golda Meir and Queen Esther. They both rank up there. So I understand that your parents were Holocaust survivors. Can you tell us a little bit more about them and what impact that had on your life?
Yes, sure. My parents are Hungarian, I mentioned before, and my father was taken away in 1941 to work in the Russian labor camps. my mother was pregnant at the time with me, and she was hidden with me. I was about 9 months old when uh, I, I was together with my mother's sisters and her mother and my uncles, and we were hidden in the Carpathian Mountains that were at the time run by Russian soldiers. And we were in caves. We lived for 2, 3 years until after the war, and that's where we survived. And then after the war, my father broken and tattered and found his way back to us. And first time I met him was the second day of Pesach. I was almost 4 years old.
Wow.
So this was always, hanging on, I never remember my parents as young people, if you know what I mean. They were always older, even when they were young.
That's very interesting. Moving back to questions about jewelry, have you seen, or not have you seen, but in what ways do you think the jewelry business has changed over the years? I don't think through the internet. I don't think that's a how. I think it obviously has changed. But in what ways do you think it's changed?
Well, first of all, everybody buys everything now on the internet. Nobody wants to go shopping in stores. That's number one. Everything is going e-commerce. My company only sells e-commerce. We don't sell to brick and mortar anymore. I think it changed in a way because there's so much social media out there. There's so much with all of this Pinterest and all of these things that the young kids have. It's so easy to buy things now on the internet, and it's safe. You could send it back if you don't like it. There are days that we ship 10,000 packages a day. So people buy a lot on the internet.
Yeah, people buy everything on the internet these days,
But
especially with COVID.
I remember my kids started an internet company called ice.com about 13 years ago. It was the first or second jewelry internet company. And people used to look at us like we're crazy. Who's going to buy jewelry on, without looking at it, without touching it, without feeling it? But people did. And today you can almost touch it. There's so many beautiful internet videos and live stream that you can show things that you're almost touching it. So
yeah,
it's really changed a lot.
Yeah, technology has progressed so much.
Is amazing.
It really is. I wholeheartedly agree. I think even the fact we're able to have this Zoom and connect with you tonight is really amazing.
Listen to me, I'm 79 years old and I work on a computer. I mean, I think of my mother. She didn't even have a cell phone, and so you think of, and she died 15 years ago. It's not like she died 100 years ago, but in 15 years, we went through such a transformation in technology. And I was so scared of computers when it first came into my office. I said, no, this is not for me. I can't do it. But you know what? It's not so terrible. I do everything on the computer now.
Yeah, no, they're difficult at first, but they get better. They get better. Yes. What do you think?
You don't have to do all the little fixing in the middle.
For sure. It's always very frustrating when the Wi-Fi goes down. What do you think is the best piece of advice you have been given when going through your jewelry business or just in life?
I don't know. Advice, always do the right thing, even when it's hard, even when you know it might not work for you, even when you know that you might lose money, but you always have to do the right thing because eventually everything catches up. And so that's the only advice that I've ever got that I follow 100%.
Yeah, that's important, and you mentioned that earlier when you discussed that it's important to be honest with customers and with business partners to make sure that everything runs smoothly. And is there something that you think that it's important for women to know should they start their own ventures or want to become the CEOs of their own companies in a world that's typically dominated by male competitors?
Um, I think that there are great women out there and they just need to have the guts and the you just have to know this is what I want to do, and as long as I'm not hurting anybody, that's, you have to work towards it. I mean, we didn't build a business in a day. We had a lot of ups and downs, bankruptcies. I mean, I can't even go into all the problems that come up when I mean, people who are in business know that. But that's part of business. You have to take the good with the bad, with the other. It's a learning curve. And other women, I mean, if women want to go into business, it's a wonderful thing.
Yeah, I agree. I would love one day to see a strong 50-50 workforce. Um, for sure. So those are all the questions that I have written down. So if there is anybody in the audience that would like to ask a question, you can either put in the chat and I can ask it, or you can click the reaction button and raise your hand and then unmute yourself and ask it.
Can I just say one more thing?
For sure.
I just want to say, yes, I have been in business. I am in business, and it's a really important thing. But nothing comes close to my being a mother and bringing up my children and being there for them whenever they need me. I didn't start my business until my youngest was 12 years old. So it was easier. It's very difficult when you have little children to be away from them. And I just find that having a family and bringing them up and making sure that they're the kind of children that you will eventually be proud of is way more satisfying than any kind of business or any kind of industry that anyone can have. So that's all.
No, that's very nice to hear. I think it's really unfortunate sometimes when women feel like they have to choose between a family and a business, and it's nice to see women who have both a strong career and a strong family foundation. I think that's very admirable. So
I have amazing children and the most amazing grandchildren. I am proud of each and every one of them. And we have the most amazing relationships with all of them. I get to see them. They all live in Montreal. We get together every Shabbos, and we see. I grow up with my great grandchildren, and there's really nothing more satisfying and nothing nicer. Except now it's a little bit tough. The police come every time my kids come to see me in the country. The police knock on my door. Crazy.
yeah, it is a little crazy these days. So there's a couple of questions in the chat. So Elaine and Elliot would like to know what your website address is.
It's delmarjewelry.com, but we don't really sell our jewelry on the internet. We sell to companies that have, for instance, we sell to Walmart and we sell to the Bay, and we sell to companies that have their own websites. So for us to have a website of our own would be almost like competing with our own customers. So we don't really have our own website, but we have 70 customers that carry our merchandise. So, but if there's anything that anybody wants, you can email me, tell me what you're looking for. We could send you pictures, and I'd be happy to be your private jeweler.
Amazing. That's so great to know. Mabel wants to know if you had to study business in order to understand the business.
I should have, but I was too old at the time, and it was just too much between family and running a business and studying. I'm really not much of a studious person, and especially that I was not really in charge of the business part of the business. My husband was really in charge of the finances and all the corporation stuff. I run the creative part, I run the sales force, I run the merchandising department, and he runs all the other things that a business needs. So no, I never studied business management.
Another question is from Naomi, and they would like to know, how do you recommend starting a new passion project or a new beginning, whether it be a business venture or a new job, with a spouse who is in the more complacent type?
It's sort of a difficult question because I don't know much about many other businesses. In our business, we needed a lot of money to be able to carry on the business. So it depends. I mean, it depends what kind of a business. Today, there are many businesses that you don't need to have so much liquidity. You can you can buy stuff, sell it on the internet. I mean, it depends what kind of business it is. I really can't give this kind of advice because I don't know.
No, that makes sense. It's very individual when people start on a new path for themselves. Does anybody else have any questions? Or are there any other things you would like to close with?
I just want to say thank you for having me, and I hope that you all have a wonderful summer, healthy, happy, and I just hope that Hashem takes away this horrible thing that's over our heads, and that's it. And I want to thank the All Times for inviting me. And I'd like to thank you too for the wonderful job you did, Lindsay, and with your interviews.
Well, thank you. It was very amazing to hear from you. You had a lot of interesting stories. And I think what you've discussed relating to a family and community and business balance is something very aspirational. And I think that a lot of us can take a lot away from that. So I will pass the mic back to Shmuley and Adina to close this out. But thank you again for coming.
Thank you, Lindsay.
Wow, what an inspiration. Thank you. Thank you so much. I think now we could all say that we have a friend in the jewelry business. We're all connected.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you for being so generous with your time and for sharing your amazing story and for sharing your big heart with all of us here in Winnipeg. And thank you all so much for joining tonight. It was such a special night, and we wish you well. We wish you a very happy Lag BaOmer, which is this Friday, a beautiful Shabbat. And please stay connected. Stay connected via Zoom. We have this amazing mobile app jli.chabadwinnipeg.org, where you could keep track and follow and discover our upcoming events and virtual classes. So we hope to see you all very soon again. And again, thank you, Lindsay, for such an amazing job. Our future is in good hands. And we wish you the best. And again, thank you all for joining Lila Tov.
1 second, I have one quick question. Mrs. Gniewicz, Rebbetzin Gniewicz. Who's your favorite grandchild?
I don't have a favorite grandchild. My favorite grandchild is the one that's in front of me at the moment, or whenever they are in front of me. That's the favorite one. They're all very favorite. They're all wonderful. They all are different. They all have
Pretty
different
special, huh?
personalities. What?
My sister, her children, they're a little bit unique.
They are more than unique. They are wonderful, and I love them all dearly. And I think love is mutual. They love me too.
Thanks again.
Thank you again. And shout out to Avi. Avi's always there for us.
I will tell her.
And always helping us connect and make sure everything runs smoothly. So thank you, Avi.
Amazing.
All right.
Great.
Lila Tov,
Good night,
everyone.
everybody, and thank you.
Thank you so much.